We're catching up again with Andrew Whitelaw from Thomas Elder Markets. How are you today, Andrew?
I'm good, mate. Yourself?
All right, thanks. We're going to run through what's happening, wheat and canola and other related sectors, but I like your report at thomaseldermarkets.com.au. You've used the term shellacking for the overseas market. How big is a shellacking?
It's clearly a technical term.
Yes.
And it'll take a bit of time to explain it and probably need a whiteboard. But let's just say we had a bit of a bad week on global wheat markets. And in fact, on Tuesday, we actually had the seventh largest fall in wheat prices since 2000. So a fairly hefty fall. And basically the last couple of weeks, we've seen a real downward slide in Chicago wheat prices for about, let's just call it 120 Aussie dollars a tonne fall since about the middle of May. So the market's been starting to come under a bit of pressure after hitting really high levels over the last couple of months.
And is that a factor? Is that supply coming onto the market, everyone going, yep, let's get a piece of that action, or is there something else in play?
Look, the big factor driving the market, and one we've said right since the invasion of Ukraine, is the big factor that will drive the markets down considerably is Ukraine reopening for exports. What's happening at the moment is there's been discussions between the UN, Turkey, Russia and Ukraine. And there has been a few comments out there. There's been a bit of back and forth, a bit of will he, won't he open up the ports. And what's basically happened is at the start of the week, there was comments saying that there was constructive talks. But there's still a bit of a caveat behind a lot of it in that Russia wants an end to the sanctions before it really opens unfettered access to Ukrainian ports. So the thing is, though, just the discussions are enough to get the market a bit shaky. Because remember, the prices of wheat at the moment are record levels. So it's going to get people concerned if they think, well, do I want to hold this position at $650 a tonne, for argument's sake, when, what if the market drops, $150? So people get a bit testy and they start to pull back a little bit. Because the market, look, a big chunk of the market, and this is what people forget, a big chunk of the market isn't supply and demand figures. It's not, how much grain is produced here and how much grain is consumed here and whatnot. A big chunk of the market is actually human psychology and human behavior. And fear is one of those. Fear of losing is one of those. So when there are bits of information, even though majority of people might think that the Ukrainian ports opening might not be anytime soon, the fear that, well, it might open. So I don't want to lose my money. I don't want to lose my shirt off the back of an event that we can't control or can't foresee properly.
Yep, so that's one of those factors the younger generation would have called FOMO, fear of missing out, not that long ago. That's a driver in the market, people trying to...
Fear of missing out is huge in markets.
All right, well, let's just have a look at what's happening with canola as well. Things have gone a bit downwards in terms of, I guess, local price, according to your article here, but I noticed that there's some projections there's a lot more canola being planted this year in Australia, which might have an impact in future.
Yeah, well, the price incentives, and this is what drives markets, price. And if you have a really high price, we've got a really high price for canola over the last 12 months, and that has incentivized farmers to plant as much as possible on ground that will be suitable for it. So we're seeing big acreages of canola, and that's not surprising. That's to be expected. I think we'll see big acres on wheat as well, because of obviously the price is really strong there also. So that's what we tend to see, is that price incentivizes people to grow, and that is what eventually cycles the market down. So we're not in a vacuum. These prices that are high in France, Germany, Canada, US, South America. So that incentivizes them to put as much acreage as possible in. And the old saying, the iron sort of saying in markets is high prices are the cure for high prices and low prices are the cure for low prices. So that is what, in the longer term, will cause prices to eventually slip back down as prices incentivize people to grow and then producing more supply into the market.
Well, I was a bit surprised this week to see a projection from Standard & Poor's, the rating agency, indicating they believed food prices would remain high, not just into next year, but into the year after that. Can we trust the ratings agency on that sort of projection?
Look, looking at the current structure of not just the agricultural environment, but more macro environment, definitely sort of have similar sort of ideas of definitely at least high prices going into 2023. Supply chains are not generally the most flexible things. We spent decades developing these just-in-time supply chains where we use the same product from the same place and then we get it there in time to use it. And what's happened is the last 3 years we've had COVID, then we've had the Ukrainian war, and it's messed up everything. And even if things got back to normal fairly quickly in terms of, the war was over and, supply chains start adapting back, it's going to take time for that to readjust. But we've got this sort of situation where I think food inflation will be a major issue at least into 2023, to the back end, or to the end of 2023, possibly the back end of 2024. Absolutely, I can see that. However, I would say that I'm not particularly concerned massively for the average person in Australia, because the average person in Australia doesn't spend that much money on food. It's the people in the Middle East and North Africa that are the ones that really have the biggest concerns, because we might eat less lettuce and drink less lattes, but for them, a 10% increase in food costs means starvation for a lot of people.
It's very concerning. All right, Andrew, we'll keep a tab on that and look at your website, thomaseldermarkets.com.au for more information. Thanks for joining us today on Flow.
Anytime, Ricky.